I'm Veronica Kemeny with AFCEC Public Affairs, and I'm here today with Joe Worrell. He's part of the Air Force Civil Engineer Center. He is our Air Force Utilities Sustainment Management Systems Program Manager, and we are doing one of AFCEC's inaugural podcasts. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. Appreciate you inviting me to come talk to you today.
Well, tell us about what your background is and how you ended up at the Air Force Civil Engineer Center. So what did you do before? You're definitely an engineer. What kind of engineer are you?
Yeah, civil engineer. I was a career civil engineer in the United States Air Force, and I was assigned here when I was active duty back in 2001. And I came here as the Director of Readiness at the time when this was the Air Force Civil Engineering Support Agency. And so I had an opportunity to serve the Air Force for 27 years.
Wow.
Retired as a colonel. And I'm back into the fight here to kind of support our airmen at base level and enjoy the work that we're doing.
So tell me about what you're doing as your duty title, how you support operations here in AFCEC.
Right. As part of the restructuring of the various agencies when we stood up the Air Force Engineering Center, we stood up a couple of new divisions within the organization, one being the Asset Visibility Division, which I'm assigned to. I'm actually working in the utilities branch, and I am designated as the program manager for the development of some new software that we're working very closely with the Corps of Engineers to field for the Air Force enterprise. This software is the Utility Sustainment Management System, which is kind of an offshoot of what we're seeing, that what the bases are using now, which we call Builder. And we have various aspects of these tools that are out there now. But we're on the road to try to modernize the software to make it easier for us to manage our assets at installation level.
Wow. And you're doing that throughout the enterprise.
Correct.
So tell me about your schedule, because I know the Asset Visibility team, you all are on the road all the time. So let our listeners know what the team does.
Yes. When they stood up the division, we're staffed with, I believe, 28 personnel, and we have a charter for us to essentially visit every Air Force installation across the enterprise on a 5-year cycle. And so we're coming to the end of our last round of visits. We visit approximately 20 bases a year. And we send out multidisciplinary teams that are made up of members from the utilities branch, facilities branch, and the transportation networks and airfield pavements branch. These engineers, we travel as a group, a team of 6, sometimes more, depending on the need for the installation. And we provide training on the use of these sustainment management systems, and we assess their ability to use these systems and offer assistance for them to develop projects and to serve in the role of validating requirements as well as the scope of a lot of these requirements that go forward for funding. And then we work with our counterparts there at San Antonio to assist them in the decision making for recommendations for project funding.
And I know you and I recently, I was embedded. I was your public affairs embedded.
That was a good.
We went to Aviano, Italy for
Yes.
a week, and that was my first out in the field experience, following 8 engineers.
Right, and that was a special trip too, because we actually embedded not only public affairs, which you were covering all aspects of our visit, but we also had embedded subject matter experts from San Antonio. And we had subject matter experts here from Tyndall as well to help the installation in looking at some issues they had with water discharge permits and water quality issues. And so we brought the SMEs with us to assist us in examining that problem.
Well, I found it very interesting, and following 8 engineers for a week, I saw that the base was so grateful that you were there. You were actually providing tremendous guidance for them, and you were helping them with their IPL, the Integrated Project List, words I didn't know. And so do you want to talk about how the feedback you received? I'm sure you get this from all the bases because they received you with open arms and that red carpet.
It depends on the cycle. We travel basically a couple trips every month to various installations, and based on the cycle which we're following for the development of the IPPL, our visit to Aviano was timed just prior to them actually submitting their B-Camp, this base plan for projects that they were going to submit for project funding. So the timing was good for them because they had an opportunity to see some opportunities that perhaps that they didn't see, and things that we could assist them with in defining the projects that they needed to get into the IPPL. They had some changes, mission bed downs, some things they wanted us to take a look at, and we assisted the programmers as well as the folks from the R&O section in assisting them with supporting their projects with assessment data.
Well, they were very thankful that you were there, and you could tell that the AVT team was giving back and helping them out, organize what they needed to submit. So I guess one of my questions, I know you know the history of AFCEC and AFCEC, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, back in 2013, we stood up the new, the organization which we're in now. A lot of it was driven because of budget cuts, and there was a need for the Air Force to respond to sequestration demands for us to reduce staffing by 20% at the headquarters. And so the Air Force saw that the Navy and the Army had gone through major reorganizations and essentially managed their installations. And so the Air Force is following suit with their sister services to do something very similar, and that was the creation of the AFIMSC organization. And it's a way for us to be able to optimize the use of our minimal resources to better support our installations across the board. As a result of that, of course, we saw a reduction in staff at the major commands. 10 of those major commands were affected, and we reduced staff quite a bit. But then taking what resources we had, we stood up an intermediary command to essentially support the entire Air Force enterprise with their focus really is to support the installation's mission. It's quite interesting that the Air Force Installation Mission Support Center is made up of various mission support activities. And AFCEC is one of 6 primary support units that support the mission of IMSC. We represent the engineering piece. The other 5 primary support units would be contracting, security forces, services, financial services, and financial management center of expertise. So collectively, we pull together a lot of expertise under one intermediate command to support the entire enterprise. But we haven't lost touch with the folks out at each major command. We have left leadership as detachment commanders at each one of the MAGCOMs, and we have IMSC detachments embedded with each MAGCOM staff to be sort of a go-to place for the command to reach into the capabilities of the IMSC organization. So collectively, this is an incredible organization, really focused to support the warfighter, and there's tremendous capabilities that we've pulled together. The expertise that now resides within this organization is something that's going to endure for quite some time.
I saw that following 2 Wettersmees in Italy.
Right.
So there's a lot of important things that the engineers are doing. So how do you define enterprise? Because everybody's always talking enterprise.
Yes. Well, when we think of enterprise, we think of the entire portfolio of assets that belongs to the service, and for we call enterprise, civil engineering enterprise would be for all the civil engineers out there that make up that that comprise that, and then so of course the word enterprise is also being used in the world of sustainment management systems. because the work that we're doing now to develop a utility sustainment management system, along with the fueler sustainment management system, we're using some new IT architecture that is far advanced than what we're using now for the legacy systems that we're currently using. Builder, Paver, and Railer are the names of the sustainment management systems we're currently using, and they're kind of built on some pretty old IT architecture. It's pretty cumbersome to use, and the bases are having some issues with trying to learn how to use these things effectively. But the new system that's going to be called, it's going to be called the Enterprise Sustainment Management System, and we're targeting 2020 to launch that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the beauty
and
of that
that's more user-friendly.
More user-friendly.
Okay.
And so when we were talking with the IT developers, they said, we wanted to use the powerful search engines that you can find in Amazon.com or Home Depot or some of these other powerful websites. And that's what they've put into this new system. And it's our hope that this will serve the Air Force well. It would help us do a better job in asset management and to assist leadership in making those financial decisions for our next investment. Because we've got to do better with investing our dollars where it's needed most. And if installations have all got very important missions, but how do you decide which base gets the money? And a lot of it's going to be driven by data. And we're integrating a lot of intelligence, business intelligence, into this software. And working very closely with the Corps of Engineers, they're actually embracing some of this new technology that the Air Force is going to have available. Geospatial information that we have been collecting on our utility networks has been one source of data, along with improving our real property records. We can do a great job in knowing which installation has the worst system and helps guide those kinds of decisions for our investments.
Well, so it sounds like you're doing business smarter.
We are. We've got to. We have less resources to work with, and our operational budget is quite limited. So we've got to be smarter in how we invest our next dollar. And our role on the asset visibility team as we go out to visit our bases is to ensure that we are looking if the requirements of these projects are being submitted at the right time and at the proper scope. So our mission is fairly important because it helps guide the decisions back in San Antonio, which then the recommendations would be for project funding. And we're there to help the bases ensure that they've got the proper course of action developed for each one of their projects. So it's an exciting job because we get a chance to do a lot of travel, not only here in CONUS, but also our overseas installations. And we see big differences in how some installations are being run. We used to have this philosophy of one base, one boss, but we no longer can enjoy that way of operating because resources are so limited. And now we as an organization need to better support our installations and really focus on what's most important.
Well, it seemed to me on our trip to Italy that the base civil engineer, he was excited to have you there because you were actually supporting the warfighter. So tell me how you feel about supporting the warfighter, because you get to meet the warfighter when you're out on the road.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me quite a bit of the time when I was active duty. Of course, that's where the rubber meets the roads, where the runways are located at our bases, and combat air power is launched from our bases, and that's how we fight our wars. And so our infrastructure is so vital for us to project air power. And therefore, having the role of getting a chance to go and see what the challenges are at our bases. And, over time, our engineers on our staff would have set foot on every one of our bases. And they serve in the role as sub-activity managers in the various engineering disciplines, would have a really good feel for what's out there. And when they see emerging requirements, they can assist the bases in getting those projects funded. And that's the exciting part of this job, is being able to go out there and provide direct support to the base engineer and their mission, because the base engineers are there to support their commander. And if infrastructure is crumbling, it's going to make it very difficult to project air power. So our primary focus, of course, is making sure that we have the power on, the lights work every time, water supplies are good, and of course the runway, which serves as a platform for our aircraft.
As we saw those F-16s